For more than 50 years now, there's been this deadly virus that kind of creeps out of the shadows every single dry season. It's a persistent public health mystery. Today, we're opening the case file on Lassa Fever. It's a disease that shows us this incredibly complex connection between people, animals, and the world around us. So, let's crack it open.
So, let's go back in time. Our story starts, not in some high-tech lab, but in a small town called Lassa in Nigeria, way back in 1969. A missionary nurse gets sick with this really strange fever, and within a week, she dies. And then it gets worse. Two of the nurses who took care of her, they get sick too, and one of them dies. Just like that, the world had met a brand new, completely unknown killer.
This tragedy, as you can imagine, kicked off this urgent investigation. It raised all these critical questions that, honestly, researchers are still working on today. So in this explainer, we're going to follow that journey to understand this virus, how it jumps from host to host, and the strategies we're trying to use to fight back.
All right, so to really get a grip on Lassa, we first need to meet the two main characters in this whole drama. The virus itself, and, well, the animal that gives it a ride.
Okay, so here they are, the two key players in our story. On the left, you've got the Lassa virus itself. It's what's known as a single-stranded RNA virus. And on the right, you have its accomplice, the multi-membrane rat. Now this little guy is the primary host. That means it can carry the virus, spread it around in its urine and feces, all without ever getting sick itself. It's basically the perfect, unsuspecting delivery system for a deadly virus.
And the whole role of this Mastomys rat, it brings us to this really key concept in public health called a zoonotic reservoir. All that means is an animal population where a germ can just live, long-term, hanging out quietly until it gets a chance to jump to a new host, like us.
Okay, so we've met our culprit and its accomplice. Now, let's investigate the crime scene. Because Lassa fever isn't random. Nope, it follows a really predictable pattern, one that's tied directly to the environment and the changing seasons.
So here's the key to the whole puzzle, the seasonal surge. During the dry season, we're talking roughly December to April, food and water get scarce out in the wild. And that, plus things like agricultural bush burning, forces these rats to look for food and shelter inside people's homes. This is the moment when the worlds of humans and rodents collide, and it creates what we call the peak Lassa season. And this is the really crucial part. Certain conditions basically roll out the red carpet for these rats. I mean, think about it. Homes with mud floors they can easily burrow into. People storing food in open sacks right on the floor. Poor sanitation. It all creates a super welcoming environment for them. It's this perfect storm of environmental and social factors that really sets the stage for an outbreak.
So we've got the who, the where, and the why. Now let's follow the data trail and see just how big this problem really is across West Africa.
Okay, just take a second to wrap your head around the numbers here. Every single year, it's estimated that somewhere between 100,000 and 300,000 people get infected with the Lassa virus. And because we can't track it perfectly everywhere, these numbers are almost certainly an undercount. The real number could be way, way higher.
And look, while about 80% of infections are actually mild, for the people who get severely ill, the outcome can be absolutely devastating. In Nigeria, the case fatality rate, that's the percentage of confirmed cases that result in death, has been as high as 18.7%. Let that sink in. That means nearly 1 out of every 5 people with a confirmed case didn't make it. The virus also has these geographic hotspots. It hits certain places way harder than others. In Nigeria, for example, cases are really concentrated in just a few states. In a recent year, Ondo State alone had 35% of all confirmed cases. Bauchi and Edo weren't far behind. This just goes to show you the burden of this disease is not spread evenly at all. And this data right here, it really drives home just how relentless this cycle is. I mean, you look at the numbers for a full year, and then you see how quickly the cases and deaths start piling up in just the first few weeks of the next year. It's clear that this Lassa season is just a predictable and devastating cycle. So who is getting hit the hardest by Lassa fever? Well, the data shows the biggest burden falls on people between 21 and 30 years old. This is what you'd call the economically active population. The farmers, the workers, the young parents. So when this group gets sick, it's not just a health crisis. It becomes an economic crisis that can shake an entire community. All right, so we've seen the scale of the problem. We've looked at the data. It's a lot. So the big question is, what do we do about it? How do we build a defense against Lassa and finally break this cycle?
To stop the spread, you've got to break the chain of transmission.
And really, there are two main ways this thing moves. First, you have what's called primary transmission. That's from an infected rat to a person. But then you have secondary transmission, which is from one sick person to another, usually through contact with body fluids. And that second path is a huge risk for healthcare workers and family members who are trying to care for the sick.
The good news is the solutions target these pathways directly, and prevention starts right at home. We're talking about simple but incredibly powerful actions like rodent-proofing your house, storing your food in sealed containers, and just practicing good hygiene. These are the first line of defense, all designed to stop that initial jump of the virus from a rat to a person.
But look, you can't just solve this one house at a time. To truly get ahead of Lassa Fever, you need a much broader strategy. And according to the experts, the ultimate solution is something called a One Health approach. So what on earth is One Health? Well, it's actually a pretty simple but powerful idea. It's recognizing that the health of people, the health of animals, and the health of our environment are all connected. Defeating Lassa isn't just about treating sick patients. It's about managing the environment to control the rat population, it's about educating communities on how to stay safe, and it's about making our hospitals and clinics stronger. It's a full-circle strategy that leaves us with a really important question. How do we build a world where we can all coexist in a way that keeps everyone safe?